Chapter 16, Essential Early Daoist Philosophers and the Schools of Daoism, Part 3, Confucius, Zhuangzi and Guanzi's Neiye. Written and produced by Thomas Tyseal. Copyright Thomas Tyseal, unless otherwise noted. Meet Confucius. The Mandarin Chinese word Confuzi, meaning Master Kong, gives rise to the name Confucius. Confucius was born with the name Kongqiu in what is now the Shandong province during the spring and autumn period of the Zhou dynasty. Confucius was born around 551 BCE, which is about 50 years after Lao Tzu. Confucius and Lao Tzu were also contemporaries of the Buddha, born around 560 BCE in what is now Nepal. All three lived around the same time as the Hebrew prophets Ezekiel, Daniel, and 2nd Isaiah. These 6 teachers propagated an amazing wave of spiritual insight across the planet. While born in a middle-class family, Confucius rose quickly to become governor of a town and then the minister of crime in the state of Lu, a vassal state of the Zhou dynasty. Confucius became engaged in trying to bring 3 aristocratic families under the leadership of the Duke of Lu. Each of these families lived behind walled fortresses. To establish unity under the Duke of Lu, Confucius sought to have each family remove their walled fortresses. While clearly an important and politically vulnerable figure, Confucius's true interest was in teaching the classics to discern their moral lessons. Confucius was not only occupied with preserving the history of the classics, he also taught that strict adherence to the ceremonial rites and rituals of the Zhou era, such as offering sacrifices to ancestors and the various deities with reverence, was essential to moral development. This was innovative in that he taught that ceremonies must be done correctly, not for reward from the ancestors, but for personal refinement. Confucius is credited with either being the author or the editor of the 5 Chinese classics of antiquity. The Book of Songs, also called the Book of Poems or Song Scripture, the Book of Documents, the Book of Changes, the Book of Rites, which reveals deep shamanistic roots in the era preceding Confucius, the Spring and Autumn Annuals. A large portion of what we know of ancient Chinese society and history comes from Confucius. Confucius sought to teach the way of the gentleman, exemplified by the sages of the previous era. This way was most associated, he claimed, with 5 behaviors: benevolence, treating all others with respect and kindness, and fulfilling one's responsibility towards others; righteousness, doing the right thing for the right reason, ignoring any personal gain or loss that may come from an action; ritual propriety, acting in accordance with the rites and performing rituals with reverence, thus doing the right thing the right way at the right time; wisdom, correctly discerning situations and people; and trustworthiness, being truthful, accountable, and responsible. The Analects of Confucius began to be assembled after his death by his followers during the Warring States period, reaching its final form during the Han Dynasty some 200 years on either side of the birth of Christ. Confucian ethics are considered the foundation of East Asian ethics. At the heart of ancient Chinese culture and philosophy is yin and yang. The first indication of the use of these terms date from oracle bones from the 14th century BCE. Originally, yang simply meant daytime when the farmers worked, and yin referred to nighttime when they rested, and the two terms were independent, not connected. The first written record using these two characters together appears in a verse from the Book of Songs, one of the Confucian classics that gathered songs and poems from the early Shang and Zhou dynasty. The verse reads, "Viewing the scenery at a hill looking for yin-yang." This suggests standing on a hill at dusk or dawn at the interface between day and night, a time of balance. Over hundreds of years, yang grew to mean male, sun, hot, dry, light, active, dominant, independent, and many other things. Yin meant the opposite of yang. Everything is either yin or yang, and yang is not better than yin or the reverse. They are simply natural contrast, and it is the balance that is important. The historian Sima Tan from the Western Han Dynasty and who died around 110 BCE stated that a yin-yang school of philosophy existed during the spring and autumn and warring states period of the Zhou dynasty, thus stretching from about 700 BCE to 220 BCE. He described the school as the investigation of the art of yin and yang, and explained that its practitioners used it for divination based on patterns in nature, including, no doubt, the Bagua. Zhou, who lived from 305 to 240 BCE, is strongly associated with yin-yang theories and is credited with merging it with the five elements, Wu-Qing theory. None of his writings, however, have survived. Practitioners in the school of yin-yang were known as masters of the formula, fangxi. These masters used a diverse set of numerological practices, including astronomy, calendar reading, and cycles of natural change, wuxing, the five phases, for divination. As you'll see, these are still central practices in modern Daoism. Confucius spoke of qi in his Analects as a vital force. In chapter 16:7, he joined the word qi with the word for blood, shui, writing, "The morally noble man guards himself against three things. When he is young, his shui qi has not yet stabilized, so he guards himself against sexual passion. When he reaches his prime, his shui qi is not easily subdued, so he guards himself against combativeness. When he reaches old age, his shui qi is already depleted, so he guards himself against acquisitiveness." Meet Zhuangzi, also called Chuang Tzu, author of one of the three classics of Daoism. The Tao Te Ching of Lao Tzu is one of the three classics of Taoism. The other two are the Zhuangzi, also called Chuang Tzu, and the Li Tzu. Both are known by the authors' names. The first 7 chapters of the Zhuangzi, known as the inner chapters, are believed to have been written by Master Guang, Zhuangzi. The remaining 26 chapters had other origins. Dating these authors is difficult. Zhuangzi and Li Tzu seem to have lived between 100 and 200 years after Lao Tzu during the Warring States period. The biggest difference between Lao Tzu and these two authors regards the concept of no action, wu wei. For Lao Tzu, it meant to only act to protect the poor and admonish the rich, and to not use force or overregulate society. For Zhuangzi, see chapter 7, and Lizi, it meant not being involved in statecraft at all, and withdrawing from society, which they viewed as corrupt. Zhuangzi's true man. Chapter 6 in the Zhuangzi provides a useful description of what Zhuangzi viewed as the qualities of a sage. What do I mean by a true man? The true man of ancient times did not rebel against want, did not grow proud in plenty, and did not plan his affairs. A man like this could commit an error and not regret it, could meet with success and not make a show. A man like this could climb the high places and not be frightened, could enter the water and not get wet, could enter the fire and not get burned. His knowledge was able to climb all the way up to the way like this. The true man of ancient times slept without dreaming and woke without care. He ate without savoring, and his breath came from deep inside. The true man breathes with his heels. The mass of men breathe with their throats. Crushed and bound down, they gasp out their words as though they were retching. Deep in their passions and desires, they are shallow in the workings of heaven. The true man of ancient times knew nothing of loving life, knew nothing of hating death. He emerged without delight. He went back in without a fuss. He came briskly. He went briskly, and that was all. He didn't forget where he began. He didn't try to find out where he would end. He received something and took pleasure in it. He forgot about it and handed it back again. This is what I call not using the mind to repel the way, not using man to help out heaven. This is what I call the true man. Much of the Zhuangzi reads very much like Plato's Socratic dialogues, save that in the Zhuangzi, animals often contribute to the discussion or are its subject, as they are often represented as being in harmony with the Tao. While the Tao Te Ching is largely free of discussion of sages having supernatural powers, the Zhuangzi ascribes many powers to sages that can be interpreted as supernatural. For example, of the philosopher Lizi, the Zhuangzi says that he could ride with the wind and go soaring around the clouds with breezy skill. The Zhuangzi in chapter 1 also speaks of a holy man that doesn't eat the 5 grains, but sucks the wind, drinks the dew, climbs up on the clouds and mist, rides a flying dragon, and wanders beyond the 4 seas. By concentrating his spirit, he can protect creatures from sickness and plague and make the harvest plentiful. Further, Zhuangzi relates, "There is nothing that can harm this man. Though flood waters pile up to the sky, he will not drown. Though a great drought melts metal and stone and scorches the earth and hills, he will not be burned." In chapter 12, Zhuangzi explains that the sage is like a quail who, after 1,000 years, should he weary of the world, he will leave it and ascend to the immortals, riding on those white clouds all the way up to the village of God. The three worries you have cited, that is, many sons that bring many fears, riches that bring many troubles, and long life that brings many shames, never touch him. His body is forever free of peril. How can he suffer any shame? While some of these and similar expressions are clearly metaphors, it's clear that many Taoists believed them literally, and that this literal belief fueled much of Taoist development. Zhuangzi and the Yellow Emperor. In general and against convention, Zhuangzi was not a fan of the three sovereigns and five emperors. In chapter 14, he wrote, "I will tell you how the three august ones and the five emperors ruled the world. They called it ruling, but in fact they were plunging it into the worst confusion." While Lao Tzu had not focused on mythical characters like the Yellow Emperor, Zhuangzi included them, but placed them in need of Taoist education. He had the Yellow Emperor travel to a mountaintop to receive Taoist instruction from Master Guang, whose name means person who knows all. Zhuangzi had the Yellow Emperor ask Master Guang about how to use the Tao and how the knowledge of yin and yang would help grow grains and other living things. Master Guang replied, "Ever since you began to govern the world, rain falls before the cloud vapors have even gathered. The plants and trees shed their leaves before they have even turned yellow, and the light of the sun and moon grows more and more sickly. Shallow and vapid, with the mind of a prattling knave, what good would it do to tell you about the perfect way?" After this, the text says that the Yellow Emperor gave up his throne, built a solitary hut, spread a mat of white rushes, and lived for 3 months in retirement. He then returned to Master Guang and, in a humble manner, asked about governing the body and living a long life. Master Guang replied, "Excellent this question of yours. Come, I will tell you about the perfect way. The essence of the perfect way is deep and darkly shrouded. The extreme of the perfect way is mysterious and hushed in silence." Continuing, he said, "Let there be no seeing, no hearing. Enfold the spirit in quietude, and the body will right itself. Be still, be pure. Do not labor your body. Do not churn up your essence, and then you can live a long life. When the eye does not see, the ear does not hear, and the mind does not know, then your spirit will protect the body, and the body will enjoy long life." He then advised, "Be cautious of what is within you. Block off what is outside you, for much knowledge will do you harm. Then I will lead you up above the great brilliance to the source of the perfect yang. I will guide you through the dark and mysterious gate to the source of the perfect yin." Then Master Guang added, "Heaven and earth have their controllers, the yin and yang their storehouses. You have only to take care and guard your own body. These other things will of themselves grow sturdy. As for myself, I guard this unity, abide in this harmony, and therefore I have kept myself alive for 1,200 years, and never has my body suffered any decay." Continuing from the preceding discussion between Master Guang and the Yellow Emperor, as illustrated in the real statue proposal at right, Master Guang further explained the Tao and immortal life after death. "This thing, the Tao, I've been talking about is inexhaustible. and yet men all suppose that it has an end. This thing I've been talking about is unfathomable, and yet men all suppose that it has a limit. He who attains my way will be a bright one on high and a king in the world below. But he who fails to attain my way, though he may see the light above him, will remain below as dust. All the 100 creatures that flourish are born out of dust and return to dust. So I will take leave of you to enter the gate of the inexhaustible and wander in the limitless fields, to form a triad with the light of the sun and moon, to partake in the constancy of heaven and earth. What stands before me I mingle with, what is far from me I leave in darkness. All other men may die, I alone will survive. Relating what was clearly a common belief, Zhuangzi noted in chapter 6 that the yellow emperor got it, that is, he understood the Tao, and ascended to the clouded heavens. According to legend, he attained immortality and rose to heaven, leaving behind only his clothing and a cap to be entombed. Here we have yet another account of ascension to heaven from ancient times. Zhuangzi on Qi. Earlier, when we heard Zhuangzi speak of the holy man who sucks the wind, drinks the dew, climbs up on the clouds and mist, and rides a flying dragon, the clouds he rode, Zhuangzi says, were clouds of Qi. This fits, of course, because Qi literally means air or breath. Zhuangzi also says of Qi, were the great lakes to burn, he, the true man, would not feel the heat. Were the yellow river and the river Han to freeze, he would not feel the cold. Were terrific thunder to rend the mountains and whirlwinds stir up the sea, he would not be startled. One like this would ride the Qi of the clouds as his carriage, and mount the sun and moon. He would wander beyond the 4 seas. Death, life, these would make no change in him. How much less the sprouts of benefit and harm? May I ask what is fasting of the mind? Confucius said, unify your will. Don't listen with your ears, listen with your mind. Don't listen with your mind, listen with your Qi. The ears are limited to listening, the mind is limited to sorting, but the Qi, all empty it awaits things. The Tao gathers in emptiness, emptiness that is the fasting of the mind. Here we have Qi and the Tao characterized as empty, just like the Buddha taught in the Suna Sutta, SN 3585, that all sense organs should be empty of self-clinging. Being empty of self, you can experience the Qi, life force, animating everything. Zhuangzi on the illusion of self. As to the reality of change and the illusion of self, Zhuangzi, like the Buddha, related, once Chuang Tzu dreamt he was a butterfly flitting and fluttering around, happy with himself and doing as he pleased. He didn't know he was Chuang Tzu. Suddenly he woke up, and there he was, solid and unmistakable Chuang Tzu. But he didn't know if he was Chuang Tzu who had dreamt he was a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming he was Chuang Tzu. Between Chuang Tzu and the butterfly there must be some distinction. This is called the transformation of things. Guangzi's Neiye and more about Qi. Qi in Guangzi's Neiye, even more insight into the early mystical understanding of Qi comes from a long, anonymous political and philosophical text called the Guanzi. It is often attributed to Guanzhong, the prime minister to the Duke of Huan, who lived from 685 to 643 BCE in the state of Qi, not related to philosophical Qi. It is believed, however, to have only been compiled around 250 BCE. The version that has survived dates from 26 BCE. The Guanzi contains a chapter whose title translates as Inner Enterprise or Inward Training, Neiye, dated circa 350 BCE. It contains a description of the Tao, and in verse 24, the first written records of Daoist breath meditation. Verse 1 reads, "It is the essence of things that gives life to them. Below it gives birth to the 5 grains, above it is the ranks of stars. Flowing between heaven and earth, we call these ghosts and spirits. Stored within the breast, we call these sages." The Qi is so bright as though climbing to heaven, so dark as though entering the abyss, so broad as though permeating the sea, so compact as though residing within oneself. This Qi cannot be detained through physical force, but may be brought to rest by force of virtue. It may not be summoned by means of sound, but may be received through one's thoughts. To guard it alertly without fail, this is called perfect virtue. When virtue is perfected, wisdom emerges, and all the things of the world are grasped. And in verse 24 we read, "When you enlarge your mind and let go of it, when you relax your vital breath, qi, and expand it, when your body is calm and unmoving, and you can maintain the one and discard the myriad disturbances, you will see profit and not be enticed by it. You will see harm and not be frightened by it. Relaxed and unwound, yet acutely sensitive, in solitude you delight in your own person." This is called revolving the vital breath. As you've seen, Confucius, Zhuangzi, and Guanzi further thought about the Tao or way, the path to follow to be at unity with the cosmos and the reality which generates the way. Perhaps more than anyone else, Confucius gave China a moral code that has survived, at least as an echo, up until modern times. Zhuangzi elevated the Daoist sage to mythical heights and made the pursuit of the way attractive, at least to think about and hopefully to actualize in some form or another. All 3 men, Confucius, Zhuangzi, and Guanzi, helped evolve the concept of qi, which can be thought of as the spiritual currents or life forces that pervades the Tao and which can guide us to align with the Tao. Concluding this 3-part chapter, we see that there is a grounded, hallowed beauty to the Tao and its qi, and we note again its similarities with other religions. Like the primal reality of other religions, the Tao is one and changeless, hidden and nameless, but all things arise from it. While there is no outside creator causing things to arise, the Tao itself is that creator. It teaches us about spiritual energy, qi, what others may call the Holy Spirit, and how to find, preserve, and flow with it by putting aside the things of this world and attending to the ineffable reality that generates and sustains all. Also, like other religions, the Tao is the way of holiness. The Tao calls us to be lowly, beautiful, quiet, and ever giving. It asks us to protect the poor and even take from those who take from the poor. If there's a weakness in philosophical Taoism, it's in proposing disengagement with social change processes, as promoted by some of its philosophers. And yet, it may be that sometimes the levers of social change are impossible to move, in which case disengagement may seem to be all that is left. If there is a difference between Tao and Western religions, it is that the Tao is less personal than some depictions of God in the West. Both, however, attempt to guide people in similar ways. It's time now to leave the Orient and move west to take a look at what's happening in Greece about 100 years after Lao Tzu and Confucius and about the same time as Zhuangzi. There we'll meet Plato and Aristotle, both of whom profoundly influenced religious thought, not unlike the way of many Daoists.